Hello. Yes, it's me, HG. Now you're fully awake and paying attention. It's Ask HG, Episode 2. Let's dive straight into the comments and see what questions you have posed for me this week. So, Bonnie Murray asks, Hi HG. Hello, Bonnie Murray. I've been binge listening to your videos, HG approves, and I can't get enough of your insight and your voice. Well, you're in luck. Plenty of voice here today. My question is, how do you experience music? Well, it goes in my ears, since it's the universal language of some of the strongest emotions that you say you can't feel, like love and happiness. Music does not move me in the way that I understand that it moves others from listening to them explain. In effect, I triangulate the music with the thought of how it could be used in a certain situation. So, for example, let's take Darth Vader's The Imperial March from Star Wars, which just happens to be what plays on my alarm clock in the morning when I wake up. One envisages a scenario marching along to that music and the adoration of the watching crowds, possibly the stormtroopers, maybe the peasants in the woods below, whatever situation it is. And thought fuel is gained from that. With the music, one envisages perhaps remembering a particular occasion associated with a person. So one might listen to the yakety sax music from Benny Hill, which British listeners will be aware of, and that music might put one in mind of perhaps a particularly chaotic, intimate partner, secondary source who's a dirty little secret. And therefore the memory of that individual and the frenetic sex sessions that occurred over the bonnet of a car then provides thought fuel appertaining to it. So the music is actually linked to an occurrence, either real or envisaged, from which thought fuel is obtained. Free spirit. Right, I missed this opportunity. Well, you've only yourself to blame. Perhaps if you were less free and more disciplined, that would not have occurred. Something to bear in mind there. Now, let me see. Belly Dancer 85 asks, HG, how does a victim know that we're ready to date again? Very good question. One method of ascertaining that is actually to speak to me in consultation. And this is something that a number of my clients do. Having helped them escape the narcissist and then maintain their no-contact regime, I've enabled them to realise that they have had repeated entanglements with a number of narcissists. And then I have ensured that they have stayed away not only from the narcissist that they have escaped from, but they've avoided cross-pollution occurring from other narcissists that might be looking to ensnare, particularly romantic ones. And when you have reduced your emotional thinking to the lowest level, then you'll be ready to date again, alongside knowing the red and black flags that signal that a narcissist is nearby. So what you need to do is obtain my excellent books, Red Flag and Black Flag, read and digest that material, and alongside it ensure that your emotional thinking is at the lowest level. How will you know that it is at the lowest level? Well, you can speak to me, and in consultation I can ascertain that. Alongside that, roughly speaking, you need 6 months of almost minimal interaction with any narcissist, i.e. a total no-contact regime. Of course, understanding what amounts to a total no-contact regime is the important thing, but essentially, knowing that you're ready to date again requires knowing what to look for, so you can gain the knowledge, and being in a position to apply that knowledge without distraction, obscuring, and that means reduced emotional thinking. How do you obtain that reduced emotional thinking? A total no-contact regime for approximately 6 months. At that juncture, you are more readily able then to spot narcissists when they come near and evade them. Just a Guy writes, great platform and candor. Thanks, HG. You're welcome, Just a Guy. And remember, you're more than just a guy. You are more than just a guy. Name change required. Teresa Brewer writes, out of curiosity, does anyone picture what HG looks like? I imagine a young Julian Sands. That's quite a compliment. Decent-looking chap, old Julian. I'm a little more ruggedly handsome than Julian. He's a little bit, shall we say, foppish, perhaps. But that's most kind of you to equate in terms of good looks. You're not too far wrong in terms of the quality there. Okay. Phoenix Rising writes, hello HG Tudor Ultra. I found your top-notch classifications unequivocally rivaled. Thank you. Question. If you ask the person you're dating what quality he admires most in you and they pause, blank, and then reply, your empathy, without being able to provide any other attributes, is that a possible response indicative of a lesser or mid-range narcissist? Yes, it is. It's a rather amorphous response, and certainly not something that one would ordinarily go to. More usually, someone would say, I admire your intelligence or your humour or your kind nature, but to come out with your empathy is rather staged. But more importantly than that, and what you have highlighted, is the fact of the pause and the fact there is the blank expression. And this is, of course, where the narcissist, through the narcissism, is seeking to find the appropriate method of responding to what you have asked. And if you listen to the video, The Imitation Game, I provide much more information about how that works. But yes, it is an indicator of a lesser or mid-range narcissist. Probably lower mid-range or lesser. Remember, it's only an indicator. It's not determinative. So keep that in mind. Anka Mar writes, very informative. I recommend booking a consultation. I speak from my experience. Thank you, Anka. The consultations, which you will all find in the menu bar at narcsite.com, are unrivalled in terms of value for money and the provision of giving you unrivalled information that will help you and save you time, money, aggravation, emotion, and energy elsewhere. Be Set Free writes, HG, I need help understanding this narcissist that was a client of mine. He behaved as a lesser, but was extremely wealthy. Well, upper lessers can be. Self-made, owns 2 Toyota dealerships. Ooh, check him out. Has a house in the mountains. I took care of what looked like a car dealership and a house in the desert that looks like it belongs in the mountains, both mansions. He would rage on the phone to his managers daily. Was involved in lawsuits against people he gloated about because he would say they had no chance against him, and ended up raging at me and firing me because I showed up at his house in my new Toyota to work and I had not purchased it through him. As a lesser narcissist, is it possible for him to be so successful, or is he a greater narcissist with a rage problem? Put him through the narc detector consultation and I'll tell you specifically, but based on the information that you've provided there, it's entirely possible for this to be an upper lesser, probably upper lesser type B. Bullying, boasting and bragging. They can be financially successful, but downright nasty pieces of work, raging at people. Indeed, the upper lesser type B is often well off financially and is well known in a small area. Sometimes it can be, they can be known on a national, even an international scale. For example, President, although maybe not for much longer, Trump, is an upper lesser type B. Boasts, brags, he's belligerent, belittles people, he's a blowhard, and he's known internationally. But in this instance, he's certainly not a greater, not raging in the way that has gone on in that way. A greater would be far more polished in the approach. And you turning up to his house in a new Toyota, which you did not purchase through him, wounded him. Laura Cox, that was even better than biting the top off a custard cream in one piece. High praise indeed. Thank you. Annika Rotterdam. Yes, Mr. Tudor. Yes, that's me. I'm listening. Are you related to the Tudors? No. Although my lineage does come from somebody who was involved in the Tudor dynasty at a high level. Time stands still. Narcissists are Lucifer's offspring. That's just how I feel. I'm glad you've got that off your chest. Anytime. Brittany K. HG seems to answer all the questions asked on the other video, so here's mine. What can be expected from siblings raised by narcissistic parents? Will one definitely be a narcissist and one an empath? Do they all become some form of narcissist? No. If you access to controllers to cope, that explains you how a narcissist is formed, but basically there has to be a genetic predisposition towards narcissism allied with a lack of control environment. So, you might have one sibling who has the genetic predisposition and another one who hasn't. They're both raised in a lack of control environment, therefore one becomes a narcissist, the other one could be a normal or an empath. So there are different considerations that apply. Take, for example, my family. So my sister and my brother are both empaths. My sister's a codependent empath, and I'm a narcissistic psychopath. All three of us had the same mother and father, and we were raised in roughly the same environment. Yet I became a narcissistic psychopath, and they both became empaths. The reason for that is that I obviously had the genetic predisposition from my mother, who's a narcissist, and I was exposed to a lack of control environment, namely the abuse that I suffered. My brother and sister may have had the genetic predisposition, or it skipped them. Furthermore, they probably had a degree of a reduction of the lack of control environment because of the intervening effects of my father, who shielded them and somehow felt that I was able to cope for myself. So they did not become narcissists either because the genetic predisposition was not with them, or if it was, the intervening factor of my father shielded them from the worst of the lack of control environment, and therefore they did not become narcissists. And therefore that is why you can end up with these differences occurring between siblings. There's no guarantee that every individual is going to turn into a narcissist just because they have a narcissist parent, indeed, even if they have both. Brittany K, another question. Do you have videos on how to deal with narcissistic bosses? Even better than that, what I have is how to handle a narcissist at work. A fantastic assistance package. You will find it in the Prime packages. Look to the menu bar at narcsite.com. I'm normal, if you say so. Writes, does a narc target a female primary source the same as a female would a male? Yes. Stephen Pospahala, I think that's correct, yes. Stephen Pospahala asks, what is your observed ratio of male to female narcissists? Roughly 50-50. People often say that the ratio is greater with regard to men as opposed to women. In my experience, it's not. That's generally because female narcissists are often harder to spot because more of them are mid-range, which tends to be the hardest grouping to identify. Sega Cephalidae. Sega. Do you know Sonic the Hedgehog? Why do narcissists stalk you? Although I believe you're asking, why do narcissists stalk you? It's called hoovering, and it's all about the assertion of control. So, in essence, when you have become involved with a narcissist, because of the narcissistic perspective, you belong to us. And thereafter, every time you come up on the radar, our narcissism asks, are you under control? If you are, then the narcissism will determine whether we need to get fuel or character traits or residual benefits from you. And if so, whether a hoover is appropriate to do it. If the narcissism determines that you're not under control and determines through the Hoover execution criteria that the direct assertion of control is appropriate, namely a Hoover, then that is what happens. Stalking is just a form of hoovering. And it can be done in different ways. It can be an indirect physical hoover, hanging around outside where you work or outside your home. It could be coming up and knocking on the door to come and talk to you. It could be following you down the street. And therefore, stalking is just, in effect, hoovering. And if you want to understand more about how the narcissist asserts control, then please go to the Knowledge Vault and obtain the 3 assertions of control. That is very much required information for anybody who wants to understand narcissism. Veronique Trimble asks, is Prince Charles a grater? Well, he is a narcissist, he's not a grater. I'm not going to say any more than that, because if you want to identify whether somebody is a narcissist, if so, School and Cadra, go to the Knowledge Vault and obtain Knowing the Narcissist. Then you can present a list of individuals that you'd like to know about, and I will provide it. Adrian Galotta, I think you're the best teacher ever. I just need to listen and follow your instructions. Yes, you do. Anybody that applies my work and follows my direction always succeeds. Sanjay Sharma, how to deal with my mid-range narcissist ex-wife. We have 2 kids. She lives with her younger new supply. Not supply. Appliance. It's not supply. Awful word. Please stop using it. It's fuel, or where you're using it as a noun, it's appliance. In fact, her cheating was ground for divorce after 11 years of marriage. All her projection, denial, and constant lying on my face and blame shifting has left me with no option but to divorce her. She wants me to have to share custody of the kids, which I refuse, and prefer the kids to stay with me. My question is, why does she want this arrangement of joint custody? To control you. You are in her fuel matrix. You keep coming up in it because of the existence of the children. And therefore, although she will not care for the children, she will not love them because she's a narcissist, they are pawns which can allow her to not only control them, but control you. And you, as the former intimate partner primary source, are a potent source of fuel for her. And every time anything occurs with regards to the children, you will come up on the radar. Her narcissism will feel a need to control you, and what better way than to do so to keep her chained to you through shared custody. If you want to understand how to deal with all of this in terms of how to, in effect, co-parent with her, you can do no better than obtain my excellent assistance package, How to Co-Parent with a Narcissist, which again you'll find in the Prime Packages section of the menu bar at narcsite.com. Lonetta Scott, when is enough is enough? It's never enough, you know that. Supplementary question from Lonetta Scott. Do you ever find yourself accountable for your actions? No, I'm a narcissist. I can never be accountable. That is part of why I evade the control of others and assert control over people, to avoid any accountability. Rumpelstiltskin24. My narc didn't seem to understand sarcasm or humour. And he was probably a little bit of a thick narcissist then, wasn't he? Yet I hear you laugh. Mostly at things you find absurd, true. You sarcasm, yes. And you're humorous at times. Why is that? Because I am the ultra, and I am brilliant. Miss A. Mr. Tudor, after a year of no contact, is it ill-advised to contact professional photographers and kindly ask them to remove photos of me and the ex-narcissist down off social media? Or is this jeopardising myself in any fashion? Well, I suppose it depends where they are being shown. If they're being shown somewhere which is repeatedly reminding you of the narcissist, then yes, get rid of them, because that's part of the purge, which I write about in my excellent book, Exorcism. It's very sensible of you to aim to dismantle any and all association linked to the ex-narcissist, and I applaud you for doing so. However, if they're somewhere that you don't actually need to go and look, then just leave it. And their removal might trigger a Hoover. But of course, if you have a very good and robust no-contact regime, then the Hoover won't get through, so you've nothing to be concerned about. So I suppose it all turns on how often do you actually get to see these pictures. Do they keep popping up in your social media feed? Do other people keep tagging you? Do people keep sending them to you? If so, get rid. If you can avoid ever looking at them, and you're never tempted to do so, leave them be. Joanne McAvoy. Hello, HG. Hello, Joanne McAvoy. As an ultra, you rest. I never rest. At the very top of the narcissist food chain. My question is, what makes you stand out from the other narcissists? Very simple. I am HG Tudor. I am the ultra. I stand out because of my effectiveness and the range of my knowledge and understanding and awareness. Candace Weber. Hello, HG. Is it possible that a mid-ranger has an idea of what he is? No. He does not. You see, you go on to write, the reason being he claimed once or twice that he knew full well something was wrong with him. That's quite typical, actually, for a mid-ranger. It's a pity play. And he doesn't actually know what it is. What is happening is his narcissism is allowing him to say that to you for the purposes of doling out a pity play in order to cause you to react, so he gains fuel, and to assert control over you. Mid-rangers often give the impression that they know what they are. They don't. When they talk about there's something wrong with me, they don't actually know what it is. That's a pity play. When they say, I know I do these things, I just can't help myself, I wish I could change, that's promise change and a pity play. But they don't actually know. The narcissism is allowing them to say that in order to con you. And as an empathic victim, your emotional thinking corrupts your empathic trait of the desire to heal and to fix for the purposes of causing you to continue to engage with that particular individual. Vesna VK, HG Tudor, what ultimately happens in a spiraling scenario such as you painted in The Fading Narcissist? IPPS escaped and is untraceable. Old friends have fallen away through time and distance or because they've had enough. The narcissist has grown too cantankerous and crabby to cultivate any new appliances. So, then what? What becomes of the failing star? Fuel crisis, ultimately, which will result in breakdown, self-neglect, possible psychosis, and all of that remains entirely possible until such time as more fuel is provided. So the narcissist can almost enter some kind of stupor. I write about that in the books Fuel and Fury. I will be going into this in greater detail, but that's something in essence that will occur. Miss A, Mr. Tudor, many other channels. What? There are other channels? How? Why are you listening to them? There's no point. This is where you should be. Mr. Tudor, many other channels claim that one should be in full blackout, deactivated off social media after disengagement a full year to not only heal but to eliminate the typical attempts by the ex-narcissist or new appliance. I would assume this would make the narcissist feel as if you won. No, that's a common mistake. I advocate that you should come off social media or at least limit your usage. Reason being, first of all, it's a possibility that you'll be hoovered through it, so you will be communicating with the narcissist, thus entering Arena 2. It's also terribly tempting for you to go and have a mooch around on the narcissist's social media, and thus you are doing things in relation to the narcissist entering Arena 3, both of which are breaches of no contact, resulting in the possible provision of fuel, adverse consequence, and the increased emotional thinking. Your emotional thinking will cause you to think, if I black out my social media, in the same way as if I ignore the narcissist and walk away from him, he'll think I'm scared of him. He'll think that he has won. No, you wound the narcissist. Certainly, the narcissist may well go around claiming to other people that you are scared of them. Let them. That's just them trying to assert control over you indirectly by, in effect, smearing you. But I fully endorse coming off social media. Get outside and get some fresh air. Dr. Goldie, MD, thank you for answering my question. You're welcome. I have another one. Do you now? How does a narcissist determine if a person is a potentially good appliance? What sort of tests do they put them through? I'm especially curious about mid-rangers. Well, luckily for you, I have got a huge and expansive answer to provide to you. And it's all contained in the book, Sitting Target, which you can find on Amazon. Read that and you will find out. Maria Pelleranu. When two narcs collide in a romantic relationship, which of them keeps the control? I suspect women in such couples concede the control. No, not necessarily. It's actually more related to the relevant schools of narcissist. And if you want to understand more about what happens when two narcissists collide, then access the material When Narcissists Collide, Part 1, Part 2, and there'll be more to come. Carolina Morales Alicia tells me, you can just call me Carolina. Oh, getting rather familiar there, aren't we, Carolina? What about some boundary recognition, you scoundrel? Scott Cooper, HG. I have a personal trainer who I think is a narcissist. She said about wanting an elite athlete that, can that be her agenda? She does want me to get fitter and stronger, but will take credit for it. Entirely the case. If she is a narcissist, and if you're minded to do so, put her through the narc detector consultation to ascertain. But if she is one, then she will likely, through character trait acquisition, utilise your success as her success. But that said, if you become an elite athlete and you are ripped and buff and healthy and fit, who fucking cares? You will win, yeah? You see, this is an example of where a narcissist can actually bring some use to bear because of the drive and the desire to succeed for ourselves, but ultimately you benefit alongside that as a collateral consequence. Infinite Tundra. How was your family like? Specifically, what was the dynamic that led you to becoming the way that you are? Well, as I've explained earlier on, my mother's a narcissist, so I got the genetic predisposition towards narcissism from her, allied with a lack of control environment because of the abuse that I suffered as a child. Violet Sky. Do you think there might be Violet Sky over the Infinite Tundra? Maybe we should bring the two of them together, a little bit of matchmaking. Violet Sky writes, HD, thank you for this invaluable information. I do have a question about their sexuality. Are most narcissists bisexual, or is it that they can change on a dime based on whether they view the appliance as a high-value target? Narcissists are sexually fluid. Not all are, many will be, particularly somatic. And basically, it's anything to keep the party started. And so bisexuality will be prevalent. And in some instances, dependent on school. So, for instance, an upper lesser type A, man, woman, animal, vegetable, if it moves, fuck it. That's their approach. Upper lesser type A, somatic. Middle range type A, somatic. Likely to be bisexual, but a closet homosexual. He will maintain the facade of being heterosexual, but behind the scenes, he will be wanting some dick. Tara Stewart, HG, thank you for this video. You are welcome. Question. Answer. Who is the person that knows that a narcissist had affairs and still stays with him? Is this person a narcissist too, or an abused empath? Well, conceivably, they might be a narcissist, but more usually, they're an abused empath. Why? Well, they often don't know that they're dealing with a narcissist, and they think that there was something wrong in the marriage, although they won't know what it actually is, and that they can somehow fix it. Of course, that empath has an addiction to the narcissist. That addiction manifests as emotional thinking. The emotional thinking corrupts their empathic trait of compassion, their empathic trait of the desire to heal and to fix, for the purposes of causing them to continue to remain in the interaction with the narcissist to feed their own addiction. And that emotional thinking clouds them. You see, if it wasn't there, they would basically see this. You've cheated repeatedly by having an affair. The trust is gone. This behaviour shows an absence of emotional empathy. I can no longer be in a relationship with you. And they would walk. The reason they don't, not because they're stupid. Part of it is because they don't know what they're dealing with. And even when they do, the power of emotional thinking is so strong, it causes them to believe that they could perhaps stay in the relationship and solve things. Sometimes it's a case of they will allow that to happen because They see that there are other benefits. See, for example, the Stepford devaluation. Kathy Stopka. HG, are you still with the blonde bombshell super empath? Yes. Laura Nordgren. HG, my question is, I left my narc husband 2 weeks ago. Well, I spied on his phone. It's rather nosy of you. And he has a picture of his self with a message to some girl who would like to meet her. Okay. Actually, the date he sent this picture of himself and the message was actually sent a week before I moved out. Him telling her he wants to meet her. Does that mean he thinks he found his primary source? No. All it means is that he wants to assert further control over that individual by meeting with her to draw fuel from her. Candace and D. Two people working together in tandem to ask me questions. Pincer movement. You scoundrels. I have you in my eye. Hi, HG. How are things going with your current IPPS? Tickety-boo. Thank you very much. Crystal Carlton. Could a narcissist with a high HQ involved in academia be a lower level narcissist? Well, it depends what you mean by lower level. Theoretically, for instance, they could be an upper lesser cerebral. So the individual with a high Q, because upper lessers can be intelligent. So there are other factors. So the answer to that, in a narrow sense, is yes. Al-Sitir. Hi. My question is, when the narcissist has moved to a different country, do they still watch over the victim, even though they do not contact? What you've got to understand is that when you're out of sight, you are actually out of mind. The narcissist does not ordinarily, although there are slight exceptions where there's a malice or a fuel obsession, and those are rare, the narcissist doesn't sit there going, I wonder what the victim is doing today. I'd better have a look. We're focused on other things, other people coming on our radar, who we then have to assert control over. If, however, we happen to think about you, or you send a text message to us from the other country, or we're reminded of you, you come back on the radar, and then we will see what you're up to. We might then decide that we will assert control by having a look on your social media, or possibly by hoovering you. So we don't sit there maintaining an overwatch over you. We're far too busy, and there are other things that need to be done. And ultimately, you're not that important. And it is a common mistake to think that the narcissist does sit there spending all of our time watching you. But think about it. If we spent all of our time watching you, are we gaining any fuel from that? We might get a little bit of thought fuel, but that's ephemeral, short-lived. So in those circumstances, that's not really an effective use of our time, and our narcissism wouldn't allow it to occur. No, instead what happens is if you come upon our radar, we may then move to look at your social media to see what you're doing as a precursor to a potential hoover, but we don't spend our time watching over you. Your emotional thinking and or a misunderstanding about narcissism, often propounded by people who don't understand it, causes people to believe that's what's happening. But it was a fair question. Be set free. Do you think Christianity is a playground for medium range? Medium range, they're not missiles. Mid-range narcissists given the teachings of turn the other cheek, bless your enemies. Yes, see the Holy Narcissist. Louisa Fragrance, how old are you, HG? I am old enough to know and young enough to do. Your addict. How do we not know, or why shouldn't we believe, that your kind is actually capable of emotional thinking too? Just sitting around waiting for us to call. We don't do that. Or expecting and hoping we appear at your work or door. No. Isn't that your kind's form of ET? No. In essence, a narcissist will have a form of emotional thinking, which is basically linked to the infatuation that occurs with the new appliance, namely that this person is the one, whereas the evidence counts to ultimately that not being the case. So, in essence, there is a form of emotional thinking that narcissists experience, but I prefer not to talk about it in terms of emotional thinking so as not to confuse it with the empathic emotional thinking. It's enough for people, and this isn't to insult people's intelligence, it's because it's an alien concept to them. It is enough for people to try and grasp the concept of emotional thinking. So when I talk about emotional thinking, it appertains to the experience of the empath driven by the addiction. Paula R.A., thank you, HG, for your time and enlightening us. You're most welcome. You said you're not interested in children. No, they don't taste very nice. But didn't you study them? Yes. Can you tell if a child has a narcissist behaviour? Yes. What age do you think it's reversible? Well, it's not reversible. It's rather, once somebody's a narcissist, you can't reverse it. I think what you perhaps mean is up until what age can the creation of a narcissist be prevented? Basically, getting in before the child turns about 8 or 9 years old. Buttery gold. Buttery gold. Tastes smooth and is spreadable. I don't even believe that COVID-19 exists. Okay. Based on a lack of scientific protocol used to arrive at any idea justifying that there is a pandemic. The only pandemic, in my opinion, is the fact that people in positions of authority feel the need to control human behaviour under the guise of helping them. Thank you. News just in. Julie. Hello, HG. Hello, Julie. How does one handle a flying monkey friend that barely knew my ex, yet is still social media friends with him and keeps telling me his business when I keep trying to tell her not to, and I don't care what he does? And breathe. Would you lean to her being a narcissist also? What you need to do to understand the concept of flying monkeys is go to the Knowledge Vault and obtain the very low cost but very, very helpful logic bulletin, The Truth About Flying Monkeys. It'll blow your brains. Your addict is back again. HG, as much as your work has helped me understand your kind, I feel that I am becoming so deeply paranoid that every frigging man is now a suspicious subject narcissist, even men in my family. Well, that's not uncommon, and the fact is that if you're an empath, you're often surrounded by narcissists, and there's nothing wrong with such vigilance. You will have more narcissists around you than the average Joe, so it's not a paranoia. Asherani, are narcissists gay? Yes, some are. And I understand as well they're glad to be. I think there might be a song in that. Dark Triad, LOL, HG, you are unstoppable. You got that right. Suck for a buck. Perfect. Thank you for responding, HG. You're welcome. If a narcissist tells you they're a narcissist, what do they gain out of this? Well, basically, if a narcissist tells you that they are a narcissist, this is a mid-range narcissist that doesn't actually know what type of narcissist they are, and they're behaving as the narcissist who would be king. A narcissist who is a self-aware narcissist wouldn't tell you. Why? Because that's the transference of power. I tell you what I am because none of you know who I am. So, by me explaining to you that I am a narcissist, it has no impact on me in my private life. But anybody in your private life that says that they are a narcissist, they might be one, but they probably think that they're a greater, and they're actually mid-ranger. So, although they say, I am a narcissist, they are not actually telling you which type of narcissist they are, and thus they still remain unaware. If you want to understand more about this, obtain the book, The Platinum Collection, and read there, The Mid-Range Narcissist Who Would Be King. You'll find that very interesting. Poison Ivy. Hi, HG. Do narcissists often stalk in person? Yes, it's called hoovering. Futo Pointo. Hi, HG. In relation to the 5 senses, see, hear, taste, touch and smell. Thank you. I wasn't aware of what they are, so it's very kind of you to spell that out for me. Is there a difference between narcissists and empaths? Yes, you all stink and we smell really good. For example, do narcissists have a higher sensitivity to bright lights? No. I know we're defined as vampires, but it's nothing to do with sunlight and so forth. So no, there isn't a difference there. Brittany K, I literally am blowing it with questions. No, Brittany, you're not literally blowing it with questions, because if you were, you would have stopped typing at blowing up, because you'd have exploded and there were bits of Brittany flesh scattered all around the room, and whoever lives with you would be coming in, scraping you off the walls and going, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, what was happening here before Brittany exploded? Oh, I see, she was reading the magnificent work of the one and only H.G. Tudor. Understandably, it blew her mind. But anyway, your question. I understand narcissists can never love a child. You are correct. But I've seen women who claim that their narcissists love their pets more than them and grieve the losses of their pets. It's called triangulation. We claim to love the pet in order to make you envious. Suck for a buck. Still not put those prices up. Could a narcissist consider suicide if their fuel levels drop fully? Yes, it is entirely conceivable as something that may occur. Anastasia Yatsinuk. HG, do you have an intimate partner? Yes, I do. I have an intimate partner, primary source. Do any of your close friends and family know what you're doing on this channel? Yes, they're all sat with me now, listening to me record, mopping my fevered brow, passing me glasses of Ribena, and urging me on with little fist pumps and pats on the back. No, they don't know what I'm doing. Andres Badalasi, are you an airline pilot? No, but I do have a pilot's license. Sashani. Hello HG, is it possible that the narcissist can be narcissistic only towards one person? Me? It always has to be about you, doesn't it, Sashani? Give somebody else a chance. While he's emotionally attached with the other. Well, we're not emotionally attached to anybody. We attach people to us, we're not attached to them. I think what you mean is, can the person be horrible to you and nice to somebody else? Absolutely. The narcissist is triangulating you, and it might be that you're a scapegoat. Samantha Martin. Hello HG. My question is, would a creative work be considered good fuel by an upper mid-range somatic narcissist? For example, a painting or handmade truffles, if the theme were heavily inspired by the narcissist. The work in itself has no fuel, it's an inanimate object. But if you bought somebody an expensive painting, the act of purchasing for them, that gift, that provides the fuel. Have a read of the book Fuel. It'll explain it in greater detail. Tootsie Bubble Pop. Actually, I have to do this. Tootsie Bubble. What self-talk would help normals that get their feelings hurt by narcissists? Normals generally move on fairly quickly, so I don't think that they would be overly concerned about it. But if you need any further help to deal with the behaviour of the narcissist and understanding it, utilise all of my work. That's what it's there for. Annabelle Black. Hello HG. I found that many narcissists suffer from paranoia. Correct. For example, they think everyone is talking about them when they aren't. Correct. They think that everyone is out to get them. They aren't. Do you think that paranoia is intrinsic to narcissistic personality disorder? Yes, because it is linked to the necessity of having control. So, because the narcissist is hypersensitive to the issue of control, is highly calibrated, so picks up the smallest behaviours which are perceived as threatening that control, it manifests as paranoia. Renuka Shinder. Hey, HG. Thank you for doing this. It is great to hear you. My pleasure. My question is, how does an empath achieve success in life? That's a very expansive question, and I'm going to confine it to within the world of narcissism. Listen to my work, apply my work, consult with me, apply no contact, total no contact, and success will follow from that. Renuka Shinder comes with a follow-up question. I am mostly not interested in revenge with my ex. Very sensible. I feel he's middle level, okay, mid-range. But I do feel jealous and angry at times, understandable, that's being driven by emotional thinking, charging up the battery of feeling, as I feel I've lost everything. You haven't. You have access to me, at the very least, and I'm sure you have more besides. And life has been more mean to me. He seems to be having a great time in life, and life is falling in place for him. Well, it often seems to be the case. However, you're not in no contact because you're watching what the narcissist is doing. And that is not a sensible step to take. Why? It's a breach of no contact. It results in you having an adverse consequence. And you've described it. Basically, you're cheesed off that he seems to be doing all right and you're feeling miserable. Guess what? If you weren't watching what he was doing, you wouldn't know about this. And therefore, it wouldn't concern you. So that's why it's one of many important reasons to impose no contact and stick with it. If you do that, and you don't keep an eye on what the narcissist is doing, you're not going to be concerned by what the narcissist is up to. And therefore, in those circumstances, it won't affect you as much, as well as reducing your emotional thinking. You then go, does life ever become all right after a narcissistic parent and partner abuse? It does. And you know who'll get you there? I will. Use my work. Consult with me. I guarantee you will get back to a good place. Maria Terracadas. Hello, HG. Just a comment to say thank you for your knowledge. You've helped me immensely. I'm finally go-so. Great to read. Well done. Brittany K is back. Hooray! Brittany didn't explode. I didn't think she would. Here's another. Where do you get the inspiration for some of your visual videos? For example, the one with the cat being an animal form of a narcissist, or the seesaw video. Superb, HG. Thank you very much. It's very simple. I'm very talented and an excellent communicator, but I'm pleased that you find it very helpful information. I'm glad that that's the case. What I endeavour to do is take the subject of narcissism, which can be much of an alien concept to you, and endeavour to convey it in ways that you understand. So I avoid the use of scientific, psychological, esoteric explanations, which people will hear and think, yes, but what does that actually mean in real life? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And what I do is I use a combination of real-life examples, I use a combination of scenarios, and then some artistic license. Because if you are entertained while you're being educated, it will stick in your mind and you're more likely to pay attention to it. And therefore, you will win. And I want you to win because I love winning. Crazy bitch Clara. I showed your work to an online narcissist that I've recently met. I suspected he was a narcissist because he sounds exactly how you described online narcissists to be, 100%. He said he could relate to it. He said he's been questioning himself, but still maintains that he is not a bad person and is continuing with his love bombing, future faking, over-the-top bullshit. Can they ever recognise that they are one, even though they can read this brilliant material and admit they relate to it? Well, he's not really relating to it. All he's doing is saying that he relates to it. So it's a little bit like somebody going, oh yes, I understand. But how do you know that they actually understand what you've said? You don't. You can't read their mind. So just because he says that doesn't mean he relates to it. And indeed, the old adage, actions speak louder than words, he's carrying on with his love bombing and his future faking. And therefore, he doesn't relate to it. Because if he actually did, and then he would realise that you are in effect onto him, he would have changed his behaviours, and he probably would have withdrawn from you. The majority of narcissists, 99.9%, are lesser and mid-range. They don't know what they are. And if they read my material, they would not recognise themselves in it. And I know that seems extraordinary because you'd think that they would have that self-awareness, but they don't, because the narcissism blinds them to it. 3 Rooks Official. Question for HG. Oh, I thought it might be for somebody else. Is there anybody else here answering questions? You, out. Do you think people who historically ran the slave trade were also narcissists? Majority were, yes. I always wondered how someone could be a slave trader or work in a concentration camp. Do you think they're mostly narcs who ran? Yes, the ones who ran it are. They're the true believers, honestly believe the superiority, the inferiority of the individuals, see the individuals that are being moved around as mere chattels, objects. That is the behaviour of the narcissist. Charlotta asks, why are narcissists the way they are? What caused it? Why do they hurt and hurt others? Why do they love the hurt in others? When they are showed through genuine love, do they ever break down and let all evil go and just love? We are the way we are because of the way that we've been created, as explained in my video, What is Narcissism? Please listen to that. Do we ever break down and let all evil go? No, because narcissists don't see that they're evil. From the narcissistic perspective, they believe you're the problem. Hi HG, asks Rukmini Suri. What special traits do you have that the greater don't that set you apart from your kind? Being me. The high level of my awareness and my ability to communicate it, my ability to stride between two worlds. Laura Cox. Hello HG. I'm aware of the various manipulations that can be used against the IPPS during devaluation. Given the narcissist's absolute need for control, manipulation must surely take place during the golden period. Correct. The golden period is just another form of manipulation. It's just a pleasant one. Could you give some examples of how this might look? Certainly. Compliments, flattery, buying you gifts, bribery, taking you to nice places, bribery, taking you on holidays, bribery, giving you great sex, being helpful, being supportive, false compassion. All of those are forms of benign control. Do not mistake them for genuine acts of emotional empathy. They're not. They're all benign manipulations. Patty Manos asks, what happens when the narcissist turned down for a promotion that in fact was given to someone else? The narcissist is wounded. It's one of the 3 interactions with the narcissist. And if you go to the knowledge vault and obtain the 3 interactions with the narcissist, your knowledge will be hugely increased and your life will be infinitely better. Patty asks another question. She's really going for it today. How does the narcissist handle rejection when the woman he's trying to target picks his best friend? Wounding. And the narcissist then, because that's a threat to control, will respond by one of the 3 assertions of control. It might be to up the stakes by being more of a Mr. Lover man. It might be to smear the friend for the purposes of gaining control. Or the narcissist might withdraw. Tasia Fox. Hello, HG. Hello, Tasia Fox. I've noticed that a lot of ladies, and some males, young and older, i.e. 30 and up, say they are battling depression or breakups, and video themselves crying, and a few hours later they are happy again. I know when people battling depression, they go through a wave of emotions, and I'm not taking that away from them. However, the last thing I want to do, or ever wanted to do when I was young, to videotape myself when I am that sad and crying and post it on social media. You're absolutely right. That kind of behaviour is highly indicative of a narcissist, that it's staged and compartmentalised. I remember watching a video of somebody who'd recorded themselves weeping and crying and talking about all of the pain they were in. Tears flowing, itsy-bitsy voice describing the torture that the individual was in. And then all of a sudden, a cat walked across the screen. And the individual turned and said to the cat, "Do you mind? I'm trying to be sad here." Gave it away. I'm trying to be sad here. It was staged, although the individual didn't realise that in the sense of what they'd just said. And it shows, if you are genuinely upset that way, you would seek some kind of solace. You don't need to go and parade it in front of everybody. And invariably, that is the behaviour of a narcissist. Of course, what can happen is you get some misled normals who believe that parading your every action, what you had for breakfast, the colour of your poo, how sad you are, how happy you are, sticking it all over social media is acceptable. So sometimes, because of the narcissistic narrative, we control that narrative, people get sucked into it. The cult of the selfie, as I've mentioned previously, is an excellent example of that, of a behaviour that is led by narcissists that enters the mainstream and therefore other people engage in it. But what you've described there is classically the behaviour of a narcissist. Lilith Liberated. I can't imagine why it would bother people that you get fuel from our comments. It bothers them because they're narcissists. They are envious of the fact that A, my material is brilliant, and B, that people are genuinely grateful for being given accurate and helpful information, and they can't stand it. If they were empathic, they would just think, yeah, they know what he is, he's honest about it. He comes along and says, I am a narcissistic psychopath. I'm not like some of these supposed providers on YouTube who pretend to be empaths, or rather think they are, but they're not, and they're mid-range narcissists. I'm honest about what I am, and I admit I gain fuel from the comments, but as I repeatedly explain, it's from tertiary sources, therefore it's of low potency and it's small amounts. And all fuel, of course, is gratefully received, but I don't actually need it. I'm very well fueled in my private life. But the reason that they get so bent out of shape about it is because it's fuel directed towards me and not to them. And they're envious, and it threatens their control, so they have to assert control by attacking me or my listeners. Lilith continues, you are very helpful, indeed, very thorough in your analysis, thank you, and I'm perfectly happy to provide a bit of positive fuel in exchange. Absolutely. The compliments are well deserved. You are far clearer and more effective than empaths in explaining the practical aspects of this dynamic. I already understand empaths. I've had too much empathy my entire life. They have nothing to teach me. You do. That is a sensible and balanced comment. You don't have to be my friend. You don't have to think that I'm amazing and wonderful, but if you do, it's honest enough. But all you need to do is recognise my material is the best and it will help you. And if you wish to say thank you for that, you should be able to do so. And don't be concerned by the occasional envious narcissist that comes around throwing shit around. So, on that theme, here's Lovito. You're brilliant. I know. It's great. Thank you so much for recognising it. And our final question. Actually, no. Penultimate question. Livito, you get to ask this because you said that I'm brilliant. HG, have you ever had a battle with a super empath? I have. What was the outcome? I won. Though she fought hard, I'll give her that. I'll probably do a video about it because it involved an empathic supernova, and you'll all find that very interesting. Okay, listeners. HG needs to go and roast a minion shortly, so last question, John Parkhurst. I've kind of wondered, what goes through a narcissist's mind as they listen to some of your videos? Basically, a lesser will listen for a while and then get confused by my rich and varied language and will then probably call me a prick or an arsehole. A mid-range narcissist will either try and curry favour with me or lash out at me in envy, as I've just explained in an earlier answer. They don't listen and think, ooh, good ideas, I'll go and use those, because they won't recognise themselves. So, invariably, any narcissist that comes here, greaters won't be listening to my work. They're about other matters. But lesser and mid-range, they will do, and they are in the minority, but they do come along here, and you can spot some of them in the comments from time to time as well. But with those lesser and mid-range narcissists, what they do is the lessers will basically find it too much, and they will basically, their attention span isn't long enough, they'll insult and leave it. Mid-rangers, as I say, sometimes they'll try and curry favour, sometimes they'll lash out because of their envy. They will say that I have created a cult. Yeah, sure. They'll insult me or they'll insult my listeners. It's very obvious, and I allow those comments through to allow the vast majority of you constructive listeners to see the types of behaviour that exist for your better education. So there we are. Thank you very much for all of your questions. A varied bunch again. Thank you for contributing. And I think I've answered every single one that was posed. If you have any further questions that you would like answered, then put them in the comment section to this video, and in approximately a week's time, I will sit down and just work my way through them ad lib, as I have done so today. If you have detailed assistance that you require, remember that's what the consultations are for. You'll see the testimonials in the menu bar at narcsite.com. Many people, thousands upon thousands, have benefited from them. Hugely cost effective. Only today I was talking to someone who said that the thousands that she spent in therapy were completely wasted to the 1 hour that she had with me, and she learned more in that hour than she ever did through hours and hours of therapy. My work works. I'm HG Tudor. This has been Ask HG, Episode 1. Thank you for listening, and remember, obey the first golden rule of freedom. Once you know, you go, you get out, and stay out. Until next week, thank you.